Bonjour tout le monde. Welcome to our lesson on the present tense in French, or as we call it, le présent de l'indicatif. Le présent de l'indicatif. So this is going to be the first tense that we're going to introduce in this channel. It's going to be under a playlist called tenses, where we're going to cover up all the tenses in French. So stay tuned for other videos. So as you can know, the present tense, or le présent de l'indicatif, is a very fundamental tense in the French language, and it's used for various purposes. So let's see, when can we use le présent de l'indicatif. Donc, utilisation, usages. How can we use, or when can we use the present tense? Première utilisation, c'est une action actuelle, a current action. Une action actuelle. Je mange une pomme. I am eating an apple. Je mange une pomme. The second uses is habitude. Habitude, like habits. But pay attention to the habits. The habits must be still ongoing in the present tense, or in the present moment, meaning we cannot talk about habits that we used to do and use the present tense. So it should be ongoing. For example, tous les jours, je vais à l'école en bus. Tous les jours, je vais à l'école en bus. Every day I go to school in the bus. Third uses is vérité générale. Vérité générale. A general truth, or general truth. So let's see this example before we break it down. L'eau bout à 100 degrés Celsius. L'eau bout à 100 degrés Celsius. Water boils at 100 degrees. Water boils at 100 degrees. So this is a non-negotiable fact. It's a fact. That's why we use the present tense. It's for this kind of general truth, right? And the last one is description et état. Description et état, meaning descriptions and states. But again, the states or the descriptions should be in the present tense, or in the present moment, or today, for example. So let's see this example here. Elle est gentille et intelligente. Elle est gentille et intelligente. She is kind and, so this is a mistake here. We should write and. She is kind and intelligent, right? So we described her as kind and intelligent. Now, let's go now to how can we conjugate verbs in the present tense, which I encounter many students that have an issue with that because they kind of memorize the conjugation, but I can assure you it's easier than that. You don't have to memorize all the verbs. So, conjugaison des verbes. Conjugaison des verbes. Conjugaison des verbes au présent de l'indicatif. Trois groupes de verbes, chaque groupe a ses propres terminaisons. Chaque groupe a ses propres terminaisons. So what it says here exactly is, in the French language, there are three types of verbs, right? Trois groupes. First group, second group, and the third group that we're going to see soon enough. And each group, chaque group, has its own endings, what we call the endings of the present tense, right? So the key element to master the present tense, or le présent de l'indicatif, is to be able to identify to which group they belong the verbs. Which group they belong to. Once you know the kind of verb or the group that they belong to, it's easier to conjugate them. So this is the step that is usually overlooked, but it's very, very important. So let's start with the verbs of the first group. Verbe du premier groupe. So let's see an example here. Parler, écouter, penser, donner, rêver, manger. What do you notice exactly? That all of them ends with er, right? All of them ends with er. So that's what makes the verbs belongs to the first group, of course. So let's see now formation, ou bien formation. Comment je peux conjuguer les verbes du premier groupe au présent de l'indicatif? How can I conjugate them? So radical de l'infinitif plus e, es, e, ons, ez, ent. So I know this is a new term maybe. So let's go back to the verbs, the example. This is what we call infinitive, right? Infinitive, it means the original verbs before conjugation, right? So it says here radical de l'infinitive. So radical is the part of the verb without the ending, because as you can see, all of them has the same endings, all of them. So what is the original part of the verb? Is this, is this, is this, right? So this is what we call radical. And then after we deduct radical, on ajoute les terminaisons e, es, e, on, z, ent. So this is an example. Parler. So obviously this is the first group verb because it finishes with er. So conjugation is like this. Je parle, tu parles, il parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle. OK? Donc, je parle, tu parles, il parle, nous parlons, vous parlez, il parle. So, let's see another example. We follow the steps step by step, okay? So, let's take, for example, the verb penser, to think. Penser, to think. So, first thing I should use here is I put le radical in its place, or I set it up first. Hmm? Now, what I've done here is just put le radical, which is the part of the verb without the ending. Now I'll add the endings. Let's make them in a different color. E, es, pardon, es, e, on, ez, ent. So now we have the verb conjugated in the present tense, le présent de l'indicatif. Donc, je pense, tu penses, il pense, nous pensons, vous pensez, il pense. That's it, as simple as it can get. Okay, so now if you know how to conjugate these verbs in the present tense, congratulations, because they are the majority of verbs in the French language that belongs to the first group. Okay, now let's go now to the second group. So I'm going to delete these. Verbe du deuxième groupe. Verbe du deuxième groupe. IR, the endings. Okay, so example, finir, agir, choisir, rire sur, fleurir, grandir, etc., etc. So as you can notice here, all the endings are the same. ER, 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 ER. So this is where they belong to the second group, is because of that, right? So we set up the same example that we saw before. Formation, on fait radical de l'infinitif. Little reminder, radical is the part of the verb without the ending. And then we add these following endings. So let's take, for example, the verb finir, to finish. Je finis, tu finis, il finit, nous finissons, vous finissez, ils finissent. Repeat. Je finis, tu finis, il finit, nous finissons, vous finissez, ils finissent. Very well. So let's take another example. Let's take, for example, the verb grandir. Grandir, to grow. Voilà. Donc, I'll set up radical first. Je grand, tu grand. Mhm. Very well. So as you can see here, radical is already here. Je grand. Basically, the verb without the ending of the infinitive er. Now, I'll just add these following endings. Let's make them in a different color. Maybe red. Voilà. Now, we have conjugated the verb grandir au présent de l'indicatif. Donc, je grandis, tu grandis, il grandit, nous grandissons, vous grandissez, ils grandissent. Okay, I repeat one more time. Je grandis, tu grandis, il grandit, nous grandissons, vous grandissez, ils grandissent. So now we finished with the second group. Let's go to the third group. This one is a little bit different. So as you can see here, les verbes du troisième groupe, the endings are like RE, voir, irregular, irrégulier, et autres, others. So basically, if a verb doesn't belong to the first group or the second group, you put it in the third group. As simple as that. Okay? So let's take some examples. Prendre, vendre, descendre. Lire, dire, écrire, sourire. Voir, savoir, pouvoir, vouloir, devoir, voir. So before we discuss how can we conjugate the verbs, let's see an example first. Par exemple, le verbe prendre, on dit je prends, tu prends, il prend, nous prenons, vous prenez, ils prennent. Okay? Je prends, tu prends, il prend, nous prenons, vous prenez, ils prennent. Pour le verbe savoir, which means to know, je sais, tu sais, il sait. So it should not be an S here. Sorry for this mistake. Sometimes I'll be writing fast. I forgot to check. Donc, nous savons, vous savez, ils savent. Ils savent. Donc, what do you notice here? Well, obviously, there are endings here. So let's put them here. S, S, T, U, D, on, Z, and Very well. Now, how can we, what else can we observe? So the endings are here. S, 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 T, T, on, Z, and or D as well here for the third person. Il, elle prend. But the problem with the third group, which is considered irregular, is with le radical. So as you can see in the, as you saw in the previous verbs, first group and the second group, they have a stagnant radical, doesn't change. The core of the verb doesn't change. But in the third group, it does change. So let's take, for example, the verb prendre. So prendre, as you can see, voilà, prendre is le radical. Okay, it's going well, it's here, it's here, it's here, but sadly it did change here. It did change here. It did completely change here, right? So le radical, sometimes, not for all the pronoun, but some of them changes. Let's take another example of savoir. Savoir, so radical completely changed. Radical completely changed, completely changed. But here, it came back. So radical is savent. Here is it, savent, savent, savent. So we need to pay attention to the radical. And I hate to break it to you, but there is no magic formula. It's within practice and exercises and stuff like that. You get to be familiarized with the third group. And with time, you'll start noticing some patterns. So don't get discouraged and keep learning your uh, keep in the French journey learning. Okay, so that was it for le présent de l'indicatif. So let's see an example. Let's do some small exercise we practice and then we go. But first things first, verbe irrégulier important. So these four verbs are very, very important. Very, very important. My advice to you is to conjugate them, right? So we have the verb être, to be. On dit je suis, tu es, il, elle est, nous sommes, vous êtes, ils sont. Avoir, we need to have. J'ai, tu as, il, elle a, nous avons, vous avez, ils ont. And aller. But wait a second. Didn't I say that verbs of the first group finishes with er, right? Like this one. Well, this one, as you can notice, it changes. Radical changes. Therefore, it doesn't respect the rule of the first group. Therefore, I have to put it with the third group or the verbs that are importantly regulars. So, aller, on dit je vais, tu vas, il va, nous allons, vous allez, ils ont. Pardon. Ici, on va mettre ils vont. De vie. Okay, now, last thing we need to discuss is the verb faire. So this one, you need to put it in the comment section. Okay, find out in the comment section and write it down there. Now, let's do a quick exercise so we can finish for today. So, le verbe ici, c'est manger. Donc, je une pomme chaque matin. So, the verb manger belongs to the first group, right? Donc, obviously, should be conjugated like this. Je mange. Radical plus the ending for je. Donc, I eat an apple every morning. Je mange une pomme chaque matin. Nous, le verbe arriver à l'heure. So, arriver finishes with ER automatically. It belongs to the first group. So, I follow up the steps. I put le radical, which is arrive, and I add the endings that are related to the pronoun nous. Nous arrivons à l'heure. We arrive at time. Okay, now, next one. Tu, le verbe prendre. Ah, wait a minute. This verb finishes with RE. So this is belongs to the third group. So I need to be a little bit attentive to the conjugation here. Donc, tu, le verbe prendre, on dit tu prends avec S à la fin, le bus pour aller au travail. So, you take the bus to go to work or to go to work. Yes, exactly. So, let's go now to this one. Il finir, c'est devoir. Le verbe finir, to finish. How does it end? With ER. Automatically belongs to the second group. Donc, il, I put le radical fin, and I add the ending IT. Il finit, or il finit ses devoirs. He finishes his homework, or his homeworks. Okay, next one. Nous. So this is the verb être, to be, that is extremely irregular. We say nous sommes. Nous sommes très fatigués après le travail. We are very tired after work. Nous sommes très fatigués après le travail. This is avoir, another extremely irregular verb. Donc, vous avez beaucoup de choses à faire aujourd'hui. Vous avez beaucoup de choses à faire aujourd'hui. Meaning, you have a lot of things to do today. Let's go to the next one. Elle, the verb aller, another extremely important irregular one. So, aller means to go. Donc, elle, notice elle is plural, third person plural. Elles vont. Ils vont au cinéma ce soir. Ils vont au cinéma ce soir. They go or they're going to the cinema this evening. Okay, let's go to the next one. Nous, écrire une lettre à nos amis. So, écrire means to write. And as you can notice, the ending is RE, just like prendre, meaning it belongs to the third group. So now I have to be attentive. Nous écrivons. Radical completely changed, which is the problematic thing about the third group. That's why you need to pay attention to how they are conjugated. Donc, nous écrivons une lettre à nos amis. We write a letter to our friends. And lastly, je travaillais dur pour réussir. So, travailler finishes with ER. So, it belongs to the first group. Will be easy to conjugate. I just have to respect the rule de la formation. Donc, I set up le radical. Voilà. And I add E for je, for the pronoun je. Donc, je travaille dur pour réussir. Je travaille dur pour réussir. So, that was it for today. To summarize, we learned about the use of the present tense, how to conjugate regular and irregular verbs, meaning first and second and third groups, and practice with some exercises. So, if you have any questions, don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section, and I will get back to you. And don't forget to like and share and subscribe. if you can. This is your channel to learn French in an English way for all the English speakers out there. Merci beaucoup. On se verra à la prochaine vidéo. Au revoir.